Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be doing part 2 of the Runewords. Woo! So before we jump in, I'm going to go over the baseline rules for the Runewords. Every runeword needs to be made in a specific base that is specific to the Runewords. The number of sockets and the number of runes needed to make the runeword need to match. You can't have anything that is extra. You need to have them in the right order, and the runes get added into the abilities of the runeword. Now, in D&D, things are a little different. I have written that they overwrite, or that the abilities of the runeword overwrite the abilities of the runes. This is just a mechanical thing so that I can combine or tweak those abilities of the runes, or fit the abilities to what the runeword actually does. As an example, Ohm gives a +1 to attack and damage rolls when socketed into weapons. So this allows me to make a weapon a +2 or a +3. Also, any runeword in D&D is immediately a legendary item. This means that I can make a ton of abilities for these runewords. You need, several rare items, rare or more, rare or higher, in order to make these runewords on top of the base that you have. So this way you have, it's intended to be, well, I'd like for it to be a mid to late game crafting system, but in the end, it really is a late game crafting system. Then again, you're also getting items that don't do anything until you've actually socketed them. So that might actually be a decent balancing point. Regardless, these are the rules, and now let's get into it. So last time we made it through the alphabet all the way down to destruction, and now we go to doom. Doom on you. Doom is pretty expensive. It's got 5 runes, a Hell, Ohm, Lo, Cham, and its most striking feature is the ability to cast a volcano on striking, but it also has a pretty decent Holy Freeze aura, which is very useful for survival. It has a bunch of enhanced damage, a huge chunk of -to enemy cold resistance, and then some utility stuff down below. In D&D, I have bumped this up to a +3 to attack and damage rolls made with this weapon, improving that Ohm rune. And then down in the additional effects, when you critically strike a creature, you may cast a volcano in addition to the damage, centered on the target, DC 22, and you choose which creatures make the saving throw. Very similar to destruction that we did at the end of the previous video. That -to cold resistance, of course, is now translated to cold damage you deal ignores resistance to cold. And the Holy Freeze aura is just the Holy Freeze aura from or invoke element, technically, from the Avenger Paladin subclass, and restricted to just that cold damage. It also has regeneration restrictions when you hit a creature, and allows you to make a weapon attack when you spend a bonus action. This is the Prevent Monster Heal and Increase Attack Speed. Moving on to Dragon. This one is actually a very popular runeword for Auradins. You pile on a shield, a body armor, and then you pick up Hand of Justice with the Holy Fire aura, and all together you get a level, 44, something like that, level 44 Holy Fire aura, and then you pile on a bunch of synergies. Just becomes stupidly good. So Dragon is Sur, Lo, and Soul, and creates a Hydra on striking, gives you a Holy Fire, has a chance for Venom, very dragon focused, of course, gives you a chunk of defense, for some reason gives you 3 to 5 to all attributes. I don't know. Gives you a fairly decent chunk to strength based on your character level, and then some utility stuff down below. Now, this one is very clearly going to give you some bonus to AC. This one gives you advantage on strength ability checks as well. that bonus to strength, it's invoking a dragon, right? You're going to be big and strong and powerful. So there you go. You have an advantage on strength ability checks. The venom got weird because venom itself is a self buff. It's not a retaliatory thing. It's not a defensive thing. So is it really necessary to have that venom on being struck? I considered just making it so that your weapon attacks deal flat, additional damage regardless of whether you've been hit. But I decided to go, make it a little bit different, or not a little bit different. I decided to stay with the theme of the Runeword and give you additional poison damage when you get hit. Will that stay the same? I don't know. I don't like it, but yeah. It does give you the ability to make a Hydra. This is basically copy-pasted from the Sorcerer. The Hydra is not a spell. It is an ability. So, take that for what it's worth. And then, of course, at the end, you have that Holy Fire aura, similar to Doom, with the Holy Freeze aura. Speaking of the Auradin, next up is the Dream Paladin. You can make this in Helms and Shields with an Io, Jaw, and Pull. And this one gives a level 15 Holy Shock aura. And oh my goodness, this would be amazing. So with Dream, you can pump up that damage with all the synergies for the Holy Shock aura. Salvation, resist lightning, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so that Paladin can bump up that damage. Although, interestingly enough, with both Dragon and Dream, the Sorcerer could also use it because they have their Lightning Mastery and their Fire Mastery. Anyway, this one also gives you the a chance to cast Confuse when struck, a little bit of defense, gives you a chunk of faster hit recovery, some flat defense, some enhanced defense, and then a handful of mana resistances and magic item find. Now, Dream here is not fully... I didn't bring in everything over. Those resistances gives you cold, fire, lightning, and poison damage you take is reduced by 1, and then it gives you the Necromancer's Confuse as a reaction when you are hit, and gives you the lightning damage from the Avenger Paladin's aura. And then with the mana, since we don't have mana, instead this is when you cast a spell, you can regain an expended spell slot of a lower level once per day. With Duress, this one is a body armor for Shale, and Thul. It is a huge amount of defensive stuff, but also, interestingly enough, a bit of offensive things. You end up with fast hit recovery, enhanced damage, additional cold damage, additional crushing blow, and open wounds. And of course, your traditional enhanced defense. And then a huge chunk of all resistance from the rune, and some additional cold resistance from that Thul. Now, in D&D, this one is a +1 armor, but it increases your critical strike range from a 20 to a 19 to 20. It gives you additional damage on a critical hit, and when you hit, the target takes an additional 1d6 cold damage. So pretty similar. Something to note up in the runes section. Normally, this rune would say cold, fire, lightning, and poison damage you take is reduced by 1, and then the Thul rune says cold damage you take is reduced by 1d4. I have pulled out the cold damage from the rune and dumped it onto the cold damage, so it's mostly a formatting thing, but I figured I'd bring it to your attention. Next up is the edgiest edge that has ever edged, and it's quite edgy. It's Edge! Hooray! Tirtal Amn in Missile Weapons. This one is usually used as a gambling switch, with that reduce vendor prices down at the bottom there. It also gives you some Thorns aura, some additional damage to undead and demons for whatever reason, a pretty decent chunk to your attributes and some mana after each kill. This is a really good rune word for early game Amazons. Some poison damage means that it negates some of that regeneration as well. This could probably, depending on your build, take you into early Nightmare, and you'd still be fine with it. It's a great mercenary weapon. Just picking up a Thorn's Aura is pretty darn good. You can also tie in Bramble into this and get a huge Thorn's Aura as well. Now, with D&D, I decided to bump that increased attack speed over to ignoring the loading property of the weapon. Now, this only really works for crossbows, or it only is important in crossbows because they're the only ones that have loading property. But I kind of got tired of saying, oh, you can make a bonus action attack with it and things like that. So this way you can actually use your heavy crossbow as it's, well, not as it's intended, but as an actual, functional weapon instead of a rogue weapon. This also gives you a d6 Thorn's Aura and an additional d6 to Fiend and Undead and some regeneration cutting, as well as that last ability making advantage on charisma persuasion checks to reduce or increase the price of a sale. Like I said, it was intended to be a gambling swap, and yeah. This is, interestingly enough, very similar to Geed's Fortune, the unique charm that also does reduce vendor prices, I think by a range. I think it's 15 to 20%, I'm not entirely sure. But that means that you can actually gamble pretty cheaply if you bring up both of those together. Now we move on to one of the most famous and most powerful rune words, Enigma. It is a Jawith Burr in body armor, so it's going to be pretty expensive with two very high runes. But this one allows you to move a little bit faster and to move a lot faster with teleport. This is incredible for Magic Find characters because you are teleporting across the screen, across the world, the game world, and hitting up those rare monsters and champions as well. It gives you a huge chunk of defense, a bunch to strength, and some damage taken goes to mana, and of course some Magic Find. Enigma in D&D took a bit of a hit to some of its stats, in part because I wanted to not have to deal with finding additional magic items, because it's not really a mechanic in D&D, since the items come from the DM. But the rest of it is pretty easily moved over. It's a +3 armor. It gives you some additional movement speed, an additional 10 feet, which is pretty good, and allows you to cast Misty Step at will without expending a spell slot. This is pretty darn good, especially, for, oh no, barbarians can't use that, dang it. D&D barbarians can't use that because they're raging. Well, it's still pretty good. And then, of course, when you kill a creature, you regain 1d6 hit points. That is the life after each kill. Enlightenment is a very short rune word. It's pull, ral, soul, and some body armor. And it gives you blaze when struck, so some decent movement speed. It gives you fireball on striking, which is pretty good for, Zeal paladins, things like that. It's only 5% chance, so you'll want to hit very quickly. But it gives bonus to sorceress skill levels, and of course the biggest thing for it is the addition to warmth. This would be amazing for, say, fire warlocks, or something that requires a lot of mana. Now, I mean, the whole thing is kind of negated by the fact that, mana potions exist, but it's still definitely something. That Ral rune adds some fire resistance, and the Soul rune adds some damage reduced by, which is really, really nice. In D&D, this one allows you to cast Blaze as a reaction when you're hit by a critical hit, And then when you critically strike with a weapon attack, you can cast Fireball centered on the target, and you choose which creatures make the saving throw. Then this one gives you a miniature warmth from the sorceress. It gives you a D2 instead of a D4 and regains expended spell slots on a short rest with a total level equal to or less than the number you rolled. However, if you are a sorcerer, instead when you roll for warmth, you roll twice and choose the higher number. So this one does not actually stack, I think. Don't quote me on this. I don't think it stacks with the levels that you have in warmth, but that +2 to sorcerer skill levels is, still a part of this. So I figured I'll try that, see if I can bring that into the repertoire for some of these other rune words. This idea that if you are a certain class, you get an additional benefit out of it. Now, closing on the last few rune words, here we have Eternity. It's an An Bur Ist Sol Sur, so pretty expensive with that Bur and Sur here. And it gives a bonus to enhanced damage. It's indestructible. It has some crushing blow, hit blinds targets, just a ton of offensive stuff. Although it does have some pretty decent things with cannot be frozen, and a decent chunk of finding magic items from that Ist rune. Now, the thing that sets it apart from other rune words is that it gives you level 8 revive, and a huge amount of them, 88 charges. Now, I waffled back and forth about whether that revive should be the Necromancer's revive or like revivify, which would be amazing. I'm still not entirely sold of not changing it, but I decided to go with the Diablo mechanic for now. This is a +2 weapon. It has 3 charges that you can use on that revivify, or on that revive, but it restricts it to a CR3 creature because you are not a necromancer. That slows target, cuts the weapon speed, or cuts the speed of the creature when you hit it with a weapon, and then it allows you to burn a bonus action to roll a hit die, add your Constitution modifier, regain that many hit points. And then your speed cannot be reduced except if it is set to 0, and this weapon cannot be damaged or broken. So some pretty minor stuff, and then just that huge chunk of revive utility. Next up is the first rune word that we have that can only be used by a specific class. Exile is specifically made for paladins, specifically in paladin shields. It's a Vex Ohm Ist Dol, which means that it has 2 very high runes. It gives a chance to cast Life Tap on striking, which is insanely good. It gives some Defiance, gives a Defiance aura, which is very nice for party play, of course. It gives bonus to offensive auras, faster block, freezes target, which is very nice, some enhanced defense, replenish life. The thing that makes it very useful is that repairs 1 durability in 4 seconds. Now, in Diablo, durability goes down when you use an item, when you take damage, or when you deal damage. Ethereal items, which, by the way, I have actually made, check it out in the systems document, ethereal items cannot be repaired, but they can regain durability if they have the repairs durability mod. That means Exile needs to be made. If to get the most out of it, Exile must be made in an ethereal base. It will not break. I mean, if it gets close to breaking, what are you doing? But anytime you use it, 4 seconds go by and it repairs 1 durability. If it gets low, just stand in town for a couple seconds and it'll go back up. In D&D, the first point is that it requires attunement by a paladin. This one I would normally put up in the requires attunement section, but it's formatted weird. This one gives a +2 bonus to AC when you are wielding the shield. It gives a +1 bonus to every creature of your choice within 15 feet of you. That includes you, so you get at minimum a +3 defense or AC with this shield. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can spend a bonus action to do the Necromancer's Life Tap Curse. And when you critically strike a creature, you can potentially stun it. This is that freezes target. And then any damage dealt to the shield is repaired at dawn. So in the systems document, the last line of that ethereal item section says that the item breaks and is destroyed. Technically, Exile would repair that. This modifier or ability is intended to negate that damage at dawn. So you can't use it for the rest of the day, but you can still use it. It's not like destroyed in the sense of, crumbles to dust or something like that. All right, the last one we have here is Faith. You must have Faith. It is a missile weapon runeword for an Om Ja Lem Eld, another fairly high requirement. Gives fanaticism plus to skills, a huge chunk of enhanced damage, ignores target defense from that Jaw rune, bonus to attack rating, huge chunk to attack rating, some damage to undead, which I think comes from that Eld rune, yep. Some random fire damage for some reason, decent chunk of resistances, and some gold from monsters from that Lem rune. But the most important part, or the unique part about this rune word, is the ability to reanimate enemies as returned. Returned is not a monster that you actually find in the game, I think. Double checking. They are monsters in the game. They are monsters in the game. They are the second level of skeletons. So they're pretty low level stuff, but they're more bodies on the battlefield rather than actual damage dealing things. In D&D, that fire damage becomes additional fire damage, of course. The fanaticism aura is just basically copied over from the Zealot Paladin, and then the cold, fire, lightning, poison damage you take is reduced by 1d4 for that resistance. And lastly, but most importantly, whenever you kill a humanoid creature with this weapon, it rises at the start of your next turn as a returned that is permanently under your control and follows your verbal commands. The returned is simply just a slightly stronger skeleton. You're dumping in 2 high runes into this ability, or into this rune word. It's going to be, or it should be, a pretty good weapon. It's also a +3 weapon that Ohm got bumped from a +1 to a +3. So, yeah, it's worth actually making this. I originally had this as if you kill a creature with a critical strike, or a humanoid creature with a critical strike, then you get the returned. And then I was like, no, that's way too specific for what the cost is. And that is it. A pretty short one today. Well, shorter than last time. Last time was 16 of these. This one I think is only 10. So I am going to end it here. You can contact me at XenosFan2, that is XENOZFAN2 on Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.